Oh my goodness, how I love a good ghost story, especially when it's real, right? So, we're going to talk about the ghosts seen at this famously haunted hospital. Kind of look like we're getting the eerie hospital vibe right now. So, this happened in California. It's the Linda Vista Hospital. Tons of stories surround that. In fact, so many that many films and movies, TV shows were filmed there. So let's get into this real life haunted hospital. So it's the Linda Vista Community Hospital in East Los Angeles, California. History, tragedy, ghost stories, you name it, right? Coming out of this one. So let's dive right into some of the ghost stories and then we'll go into the past and the history of this place. So, we have three recurring spirits that nurses and staff say that they see at this hospital. They see the little girl in the surgical room. They think that she died during surgery and is seen humming around the surgical suite. Nurses and staff have said they've seen her there. And then on the third floor, a young woman is seen pacing the hallways back and forth, sometimes seen by nurses. More than one reported this. And then an orderly making rounds. Now, we haven't called medical assistants or CNAs or patient care techs orderlies in decades. I mean, probably not since before the 1960s. And so this has got to be a very, uh, retro spirit, I'll say. So an orderly making rounds. So staff has said they see a ghostly orderly in the hallways and the wards and on duty. Okay. So Linda Vista Community Hospital has been through a lot. It began as the Santa Fe Coastlines Hospital in 1904, opened in 1905. And so this served employees of the Santa Fe Railroad, one of four hospitals run by the railroad. And it declined in the 1930s through the 1980s. So initially, the hospital was really important to the community, but eventually it kind of started going downhill. It served an area called Boyle Heights. And during the Great Depression and World War II, right? So starting after the 1930s, resources were strained. So the hospital just couldn't keep up. And by the 1970s, Boyle Heights became a less affluent area. People were flocking to West LA, Beverly Hills, Santa Monica. So industry, the railroad, it was already kind of done, right? The railroads were there. They didn't need all the workers anymore. Things changed and moved on. And then, of course, as the 70s went on, we had rising gang violence and neighborhoods clashing with other communities in the same area. And of course, unfortunately, reduced staff and equipment in the hospital that saw increasing death rates in the hospital. And they got a lot of violent intakes, gunshot wound victims, stabbings, people that were a victim of violence. That was what was coming into that hospital, besides just regular things coming in the community. And of course, then budget cuts and the staff and equipment, everything was declining. And it closed permanently in 1991. But the hospital remained. It remained there. And in fact, it fell into disrepair. And so when people would do kind of these tours through abandoned buildings, they would still find patient files, medical equipment, beds, and rooms just left abandoned. And it created a really eerie atmosphere. And so you had ghost hunters and filmmakers. Everybody was descended upon this abandoned hospital. And can I tell you, we have to go through the list of all the movies and the TV shows that were filmed there. You won't believe this. Some of your probably favorite films that were filmed there. So we have LA Confidential, Outbreak, Pearl Harbor, Insidious, Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, The Cell, Children of the Corn, 666, To Live and Die in LA, Adam's Family Values, The Longest Yard, Day of the Dead, Seven. By the way, Seven was an incredibly creepy movie. Do you remember that one with Brad Pitt? The TV shows ER Season 1, Dexter, a couple of the episodes there, True Blood, where they had a mental institution setting. Do you remember True Blood on HBO? We have Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The hospital scenes were filmed there. And of course, the paranormal shows that showed up there were ghost adventures and ghost stories. And even bands like Duran Duran and Garbage shot videos there. I mean, so who hasn't been there, right? Is that not quite the list of all, um, the background that were used for hospitals was the Linda Vista Hospital. And in the horror film Insidious, they use actual the hospital equipment, the hospital scenes, and the film crews did report darting shadows and hearing just like lone cries in the night during filming, and they didn't know where it was coming from. There was also an unexplained humming, even though, again, there was nothing on. Like this was an abandoned hospital. So of course, they used a lot of props that had graffiti, and they had a fake jail cell that they added for the film. So, that wasn't part of the hospital if you ever watched the Insidious films. So, Linda Vista Hospital's haunted reputation grew from all the ghost stories coming out of there. Nurses and security guards reported shadow figures in patient rooms, hallways, and especially in the basement near the crematorium. One guard said he saw piles of dead bodies in the basement during late night rounds, and he went to report that. They went to investigate it, and no bodies were found. So he was probably just having that image, right? That thing that kind of hits your mind. A nurse even described in the corridors a stench of burning flesh. They linked that to the crematorium, but other people would go in there and didn't smell a thing. Yeah. Ghost Adventures, if you've ever watched that show, they captured a shadowy figure on camera with both cameras malfunctioning simultaneously, and they've recorded voices saying leave and dead. Now, I always have to take shows like that with a grain of salt because I know they're trying to be sensationalistic and whatnot, but maybe check that one out, see what you think about that. But the other phenomena, other people have heard voices, cries in the night, physical sensations of being touched or pushed, kind of when there are a lot of people that do urban exploring and adventures in places like these, and they report things like this. Again, unexplained humming, people hearing. Now, you wonder if that's long ago staff that you still hear their humming in the hallway, or is it a spirit that doesn't want to leave the hospital? Maybe like a janitor that keeps humming in the hallways to this day. So a caretaker named Francis Kay noted water turning on at a leg lever sink. That's where you turn it on with your leg, and feeling a child's hand touch him. I talk about that all the time, that there's always that room in the hospital where the water turns on by itself, right? So that kind of echoes what we see in hospitals. A security guard there saw a tall, dark figure at a window on the 8th floor, vanishing when approached, possibly a shadow man, right? The same guard said he was hit in the leg by an unseen force, causing temporary numbness in his leg. So let's see. This says a boiler room with a box of human ashes created a draining and demotivated feeling linked to unidentified Jane and John Doe patients. Huh. I don't know about that one. That one came off of one of the Reddit. I don't know. I have to kind of when I worked in the hospital, and I'd have to go down in the basement because that was where the lab and the pharmacy was. And it was really interesting because there was a long, we're talking, I can't even tell, like maybe half of a football field, long hallway beneath the ground that would link up the hospital to the assisted nursing facility. Like you didn't yet have to go through the parking lot, which was a good thing because when I worked at night, I did not want to walk through the parking lot by myself. Well, you could take this really long hallway. And if that hospital ever shuts down, I can't even imagine going down that hallway because even with all the bright fluorescent lights glowing, I hated going down that hallway because there was nothing but linoleum floor and shiny white walls and fluorescent lights. And you're walking down this hallway. I'm not kidding. It felt like it took 10 minutes to get through this hallway. until you could get to the next building. But anyway, yeah, the lab was down there, the pharmacy, there was some bathrooms. And I remember going down there, but there wasn't, I mean, maybe there was like a room where maintenance was. I never saw a boiler room. And there is no way we would leave cremated remains in a boiler room. That just would not happen. Now, could someone from the outside, after it was abandoned, brought in a box of something that looked like ashes and left it there for the creep effect? I think that's more likely. But so get this. So we have this hospital sitting abandoned since what? The early 1980s. And it had a huge community impact because you had this, this hospital that really needs to be used. The community needs a hospital, but, hospitals take money and you have to have enough, enough things coming in to pay the bills, enough things. And I mean that by surgeries and procedures and patient intake that have, and I know this is awful to say, but this is what makes it go around, insurance. And so when you're in a community that is lacking insurance and they need more services, hospitals can't keep up with that. It's just the pure facts. And by the way, that's why healthcare is broken. I will say that. But get this, the abandoned hospital has been turned into an assisted living facility. So to this day, Hollenbeck Terrace is now open for business. You as a retired person can move into this assisted living facility that used to be the abandoned hospital. So this happened. It was bought in 2011. The redevelopment took years. It was ready by 2015. It took millions of dollars. And now it's a 97-unit, low-income senior living facility with a medical center. And so the project preserved the historic mission revival architecture. I go both ways with this. I'm fascinated the fact that this hospital had so much history. And I completely believe that nurses heard voices, saw shadows, patients saw it too, guaranteed. And now it's been revived as an assisted living for older people. To me, that's fascinating. It really is. I think it's kind of great to recycle things. And I think it's a really good idea that they have repurposed that versus letting it kind of crumble and become even more haunted, right? So what happened? Has there been ghost sightings since it's now an assisted living? Well, let's get into the modern sightings. So post 2015, since its conversion to the Hollenbeck Terrace, reports of paranormal activity are fewer, but some persist. So a new security guard at the Hollenbeck Terrace reported coworker stories of lingering phenomena, saying workers were smelling a stench of burning flesh in hallways. Remember, that was linked to the old crematorium. And a ghostly doctor seen at a window. The security guard felt he was watched in the long hallways. And so this was reported in workingnurse.com. That's where this comes from. Then we have resident rumors. And so I don't want to say this person's last name, but this came out of CaliforniaHealthline.org. Juana M. heard rumors of hauntings, but suggested the building's reputation persists among tenants, where they hear tenants saying stories of seeing things. Oh my goodness. So even though there's not as many stories coming out now, there are stories coming out since 2015. So the Linda Vista Hospital in East Los Angeles, what do you think? The really creepy part that I think is they filmed Insidious 1 and 2 in that hospital. And you know how I say, and you guys say this too on my channel, when you watch something scary or a horror movie and you feel like that vibration comes into the room, if you know what I mean. Which, by the way, I have to do about a video about a new movie I'm watching on Netflix, The Barbarian. I got so scared watching that movie because I stay in a lot of Airbnbs. I'm not going to give away the movie, but it centers around an Airbnb. I had to stop the movie a third of the way through. It was so scary. I'm like, I'm going to have to wait till it's sunny outside to watch this movie. I'm going to finish it today. I'll have to do a review on that movie because talk about summer scary. Yeah, it's on Netflix right now. But when you have a movie like Insidious, which is a horror movie, by the way, being filmed in the abandoned hospital, imagine kind of the vibe, the vibrations, kind of the setting, like opening it up to whatever. And there was so much that went down at that hospital, like all the trauma and the death that we see in any hospital, really. And so you have that, and it's now converted to a lovely, sunny assisted living. I mean, you can't make this up. It sounds like a great movie, but it's true. So, if you're a resident of that assisted living facility, I wish nothing but light and love for you. And I'm sure it's beautiful now. And I'm glad they've recycled the building. I mean, the community needs something that's working for them. It's better than a hospital descending into ruin, even though it was known to be haunted. But who knows? Who knows? No one can say for sure if it was or if it wasn't. But what do you guys think about that? Kind of shocking, right? That they were able to recycle that into something usable, but I think positive. Really, really interesting. Thanks for being on this video, and I will see you on the next one.